it's Mary. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to do an activity that combines two of my favorite things, art and science. So we are going to use science to create an invisible ink. We're going to paint with it then. So the things that you need to do this project are baking soda, and baking soda doesn't usually come in a jam jar. But I like to keep my baking soda that I use for cooking separate from the baking soda I use for other reasons. And so I keep it in a jar where it's sealed and pretty much airtight. Some water. You'll need something to mix your ink into. I am using a ramekin, but you can use a glass, a small dish, anything that works for you. A 1 teaspoon measure and 1 tablespoon measure. When I'm doing baking or making something, I generally always measure things. A lot of these activities will depend upon using correct proportions. So if you have the correct measuring tools, you'll know your proportions are correct and you'll know that your activity is going to work. I have a spatula for stirring my ink when it is done. You'll also need something to paint with, so either paintbrushes or cotton swabs. Sometimes it's easier to control the water with cotton swabs. Paintbrushes work just as well. You'll need paper. I am using watercolor paper, but you can use construction paper or drawing paper or whatever kind of paper you have around the house. So we're going to make our ink. And to do this, we're going to measure out 1 teaspoon of baking soda and put that in your dish or ramekin. And as I finish with the things, I'm just going to set them on the side, so that's going on the side. We need 2 tablespoons of water. So there's 1 and there's 2. I make sure the tablespoon is completely filled. And then we stir. I'm going to get rid of the things I don't need. And get your paper and your tools. I'm right-handed, so when I am painting, I generally put the paints or the inks or whatever I'm painting with and my paintbrushes on the right side of the table. If you're left-handed, you can put it on the left side of the table. You can lay out your table however you want. A word about creativity. Here's my note about creativity. I am not exactly the most artistic girl. Or let's just say that I have not received a lot of compliments over my artwork in the past. And so when I go to create something, my mind just kind of starts telling me that it's not going to be good enough. So if you have that, just all you need to do is stop, take a breath, and just go on. Whatever you create, as long as you are having fun doing what you're doing, you enjoy what you're making, whatever you make is great. And you're not going to get better if you don't continue practicing. So just do what you want, try what you want, just make sure you're having fun while you're doing it. So for the subject of my painting today, I went on a trip last year and I took a picture of a street sign in one of the villages I was in. And I'm going to paint that street sign. So, and as I paint with the invisible ink, I like to stir it up just to make sure the baking soda is throughout. So you just start painting. Actually, I'm going to do the outline of the street sign first. So you can make whatever you want here. So we're just going to paint onto the paper, and then you need to let it dry for a while. After it dries, it does need, we develop it in with the heat source. So you can get an adult to help you with the oven and baking your item, or if you know someone crafty who does stamping or scrapbooking, they might have a heat embossing tool. You can use that also. I'm going to use a toaster oven to heat mine today. The nice thing about that is that it has glass doors, so I can tell when it is done. So obviously I'm painting here. I am not going to make you watch me paint for 10 minutes because that would not be the most interesting for you. So I'm just going to do a little more here and then I'll pause. And then we'll come back. So this is where I'm going to pause. I have finished my painting, and so I'm going to let it dry. After it dries, I'm going to put it in my toaster oven at 300 degrees for 10 minutes. If it's not done in the 10 minutes, you can put it back in for another 5. Just make sure you're keeping an eye on it. And that'll develop it, so you'll be able to see what's there. If you wanted, you could paint a picture, mail it to someone, and then they could put it in their oven and have it developed and see what you've got. Then you could be sending something that no one else would know. So this is going to dry, and then it's going to go in the oven for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back. Alright, so I just got my picture out of the oven, and this is what it came out looking like. So we should talk a little bit about why that happens. When you mix the baking soda and the water together, you create an acid. Paper is made of cellulose. Cellulose is chains of sugars put together. When you paint the acid onto the paper, it kind of breaks the chains apart. And when you bake it in the oven, it caramelizes the sugar. So that's why it's got that nice brown color. So there are other acids that you could use if you wanted to do a project like this and you didn't have baking soda. You can use lemon juice. You can use vinegar if you wanted. I did a couple different ways. So this one I did with lemon juice, and you can tell it's a lighter color, and it could just be because I didn't paint it on as heavily. This one I did with the baking soda and water, but I used a lighter paper. This is a drying paper instead of the watercolor paper. So the watercolor paper one actually came out a little darker than the one with the drying paper, and the one with the lemon juice came out really light. Well, I hope you liked that activity. We will be doing more activities like this, so if there's anything that you would like to do, just let me know. If you would like to get in contact with me, you can contact me at the Park Rapids Library, and my email there is schwartzm@krls.org. Thanks so much for coming in today and having a look at this and creating with us. I hope you had fun.